we've had with Formula 4 cars, local Formula 4 cars making up the Macau Grand Prix, but after 2019, the first year of the current iteration of the FIA Formula 3 cars, we now have the return of Formula 3, and they're lining up down in pit lane for free practice. Now, how the timetable works today, we've already had motorcycles out qualifying this morning. We now return to free practice for Formula 3 cars, so their second free practice session of the weekend. They will be qualifying at the end of this afternoon as well. 3:05 this afternoon, they'll have their second section of qualifying. They had a quite thrilling session of qualifying at the end of yesterday afternoon. Blue skies, lovely sunshine, but very chilly for the area and the time of year. We have an air temperature of 16 degrees. In the commentary box is David Addison. Are you warm enough?
Glorious summer's day, isn't it, for an English person? Yes, it's much sunnier and warmer much sooner than we've had over the previous few days. So the track I think they're going to be on today is certainly going to be a very fast one. Whether, because of the temperature, we end up with a slightly slower second qualifying session, we'll have to wait and see, but it does suggest that the temperature today is going to be higher, and that might have the effect of just strangling the pace of the cars a little bit. Either way, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Because yesterday we had a number of drivers in Q1 putting themselves in strife, and people like Sebastian Montoya, people like Zane Maloney, who picked up damage. They've both got a lot of work to do. At least Maloney has a banker lap. Montoya didn't really even get to that point. He was a very early casualty into the tyre barriers.
Certainly was, and that is not what you want to do on the first day of 4 days of competition. You do get plenty of track time over the course of the 4 days. However, you have to make it count, because when you're in free practice sessions, the clock continues to count down. In qualifying, it stops if there is a red flag, a stoppage to recover a car. In free practice, that is not the case. Having a look at Marcus Armstrong, a returnee here to Macau on the gear circuit, the New Zealander getting ready. Mainly when you grab a quick look at single-seater drivers before they go out, they're deep in thought, they're visualising. When we see the touring car drivers, they're always ready with a wave for the camera. But look at that, Dan Tickton, double winner here at Macau, deep in thought, visualising the outlap from the pit lane, getting onto the circuit, what it's going to be, where he's going to be turning, all of those kind of things. And pretty much that's what a single-seater driver will do. So gloves going on, the final preparation to get the cars out on circuit. As we say, we've already had bikes out on circuit. Very chilly temperatures for them first thing this morning. It's a pretty high wind, and not only a high wind but also sunshine glinting off the water around the gear circuit here at Macau. And that's the 24 car. That's the car of Zane Maloney that, as David said, didn't have the best of first days. It's a new day today, and a repeat of yesterday. They had free practice in the morning, they have qualifying in the afternoon. Sophia Flörsch returning to Macau for the third time, getting ready to go out on circuit. Saw her down in the pit lane about a quarter of an hour ago, just updating social media channels, very much in tune with her social media following around the world, and that's Dan Tickton.
So we're about a minute away from getting this practice session underway. I suspect we might have a flurry of people going out first just to do an installation lap and then download data. But increasingly, as you go through the weekend, of course, the pressure ramps up, doesn't it? So you can't afford to be making mistakes now, because that throws you completely on the back foot for qualifying. You can't afford to be on the back foot for qualifying because it gives you a bad grid position for the qualifying race. You can't be at the back of the grid for the qualifying race because it stuffs your chances for the Grand Prix. And then there's nowhere to go, because that's it. That's the last bit of the weekend. So from here on in, they've got to keep off the wall, keep out of trouble, and get this right. One
little mistake can upset the whole weekend. It can put you all the way back. We've seen it so many times with really, really good drivers that come here really high up in the expectations of a result in the Grand Prix on Sunday. Although we say you get plenty of track time, 2 free practice sessions, 2 qualifying sessions, a qualification race and a Grand Prix as well. Green flag is waved and the cars leave the pit lane all at the same time. But it's that one little mistake early on in the weekend that can throw the whole thing out.
Yes, absolutely. And we talked yesterday about the fascinating entry that we've got this year, with a number of drivers coming to the event having either raced here a few years ago, some making their Formula 3 debuts, some making their Macau debuts, some making a Macau return, and other drivers, of course, are, in the case of Alex Dunn, never having raced here, never having raced a Formula 3 car. The end into which they have been thrown is about as deep as it can get.
It is pretty hard work when you come here to Macau to learn exactly what it feels like to actually be going up and down with the barriers, with the walls, all the challenges that you've got. They can use a simulator as long as you like, but it can't really replicate the feeling of sitting on the seat in a Formula 3 car, a modern Formula 3 car, and dealing with the gear circuit. So this is the outline. It's about warming up tyres, getting ready for this free practice session. You're not going to be a hero in free practice. Save that for qualifying at the end of this afternoon, which is not ultimately the very end of this afternoon. Formula 3 cars were due to be with their qualifying session the very last thing, but we've now got a second qualifying segment for motorcycles right at the end of today. So Formula 3, the penultimate cars that will be penultimate racing vehicles that will be on circuit, and motorcycles ending up the day. I only learnt that just this morning speaking to our motorcycle counterpart, Dave Moore, as he left. He said it's not the end of qualifying for bikes, back at the end of today.
Yeah, I thought I heard something about the first part of qualifying.
Yeah.
Anyway, what you will see at the moment, if you're looking, thinking, gosh, they're going really slowly, is that we are having a virtual safety car period, like we did in FP1 yesterday, just to test the system, to make sure all the lights are working around the circuit, and to make sure as well that the drivers understand how to do it, because I know many of them are racing in F3 this year, or indeed in F2, but for one or two of the newcomers that are stepping up to this level of racing, they just need to make sure the officials, that everybody is, we say these days, on the same page.
On the same page with the right way of looking at it. Now, Dan Tipton, he's got to come here as one of the favourites for the Grand Prix title. He's gunning for 3 titles here. He's won twice already. The first one was part of history. I mean, absolutely, if you haven't looked at it already, have a little search for it and find out Dan Tipton wins it at Macau. It is quite superb. You don't have to watch the whole race. I suggest you do, but if you want to just go to the final lap, I think that's all you need. It's just superb, absolutely superb. But he, in qualifying, he's been driving Formula E cars for the last couple of years. They're pretty different to an FIA Formula 3 car.
Right.
An awful lot quieter, yeah. I had to just put earpieces on when I watched the motorcycles. They are very, very noisy indeed.
Yes, I've had a new vantage point to go and watch on the outside of Reservoir and watching the speed through there. Sounds quite magnificent. It is a circuit, this. I know everyone tells you how wonderful Macau is. It looks great on pictures, but when you stand and you watch other cars or bikes around it, you do really appreciate just how good it is. Damage already, look, has been picked up by Luke Browning, so he bails for the pit lane.
How on earth did that happen?
Well, one would suspect he's brushed against a wall or a tire stack or something, but that's going to lose him a few minutes. And we've got a car park at Macau hairpin, which has been triggered by the look of it by the Kramer liveried car of Paul Aaron. So there's a yellow flag at the Macau hairpin. Now, normally at this point, Alan would tell you that there's a yellow flag there to tell you that you're not allowed to overtake, but that's all fine as long as you've got enough lock to get round the hairpin. And if you haven't, then this is what happens. You get a complete gridlock. So now Sophia Fleur, she's trying to wriggle backwards, and others are trying to wriggle backwards as well, so they can get basically clear of the melee. But this is Paul Aaron then just coming into the hairpin. So you've got the 3 Prema cars, and each one sort of goes wider and wider, and he came in too deep and then just couldn't turn. It was as though halfway around the corner it stopped turning, and then look, others have to scatter in avoidance there. So the road blocked for the moment, but hopefully if they can hook reverse gear, fish themselves out of the mess. Oh dear, no they can't. At some point in a moment, I rather fear the race director is going to have to make a call, because people will be arriving on the scene, and the danger is that, okay, yes, it's all very well saying let's sit and wait, but if people stall, then it just elongates this situation, and we now have a genuine virtual safety car period. This isn't a test, this is because of the...
This is not a drill.
No, no. this is for real this time, and it's all because now Oliver Goethe in the Red Bull car number 17 from the Campos Racing stable, and Sebastian Montoya need moving. Now Montoya, in theory, ought to be able to go through the gap as long as he's fired up the engine. Goethe is a bit stuck, so Sophia Flörsch's car is the one that's being pushed back. Now, of course, the drivers hopefully could roll downhill here and kickstart the cars that way. So there is a sort of plan. The marshals know how to retrieve all of this. And it's interesting, is it not, that we've gone VSC rather than the kind of panic red flag that you might have anticipated in race control. So Ruben Marquez, who is the race director, keeping an eye on all of this, and by making a virtual safety car period, it means that everybody else on the lap is going slowly enough to hopefully arrive here when the road is clear. But it's taking a bit longer to get Goethe's car because they've got to push it up the hill. And they don't want everybody else to go through the gap because then they'd be at a speed which would endanger the marshals. So, yeah, what do we do next? And Paul Aron's car just isn't for moving. Right, so this is Dan Ticktum under the VSC conditions, but in a moment or two, I think he's going to have to join the car park, isn't he? The double Macau Grand Prix winner. Rode in Carl in the team, rode in the New Zealand ownership now, David Dicker's company. Red flag.
Oh dear, can't do it.
No, can't do it in time. You're just going to get a queue of cars, and gradually it is sorting itself out, but it's just too big a mess. And a reminder to teams to tell their drivers to turn off the engines at turn 19 if required. But anyway, the road has now cleared itself, but like all these situations, just a fraction of a second too late. So yesterday, Gabriele Mini was the hero. He was quickest in free practice, and he was quickest in qualifying. We got the times down to 2 minutes 5.5. Okay. It was odd the way that Paul Aron's car didn't want to turn, so whether there was something down, but I found that odd after only the bikes this morning. We'll discuss. Yesterday's casualties, in FP1, we had into the wall at Lisboa, Laurens van Herpen, who is new to Formula 3, FIA Formula 3, and 3 red flags came in qualifying. Sebastian Montoya, then Uga Chukwu went up the escape road at Lisboa, and Zane Maloney hit the wall at Police. So I shall add now to our red flag list FP2, and who do we attribute that to? Paul Aron and friends, really.
I think we're going to get the chance to have a look again, but it looked like it was just...
okay. So look, he gives himself loads of room. He turns halfway around the corner, and then it just drifts out.
It just goes straight.
Yeah.
But the wheel is turned, isn't it?
Yeah, but he look, there's a little bit of a tyre mark on the road, as though halfway around the corner, maybe he did catch some liquid and it just pitched him out wide. But at that low speed, I'd be really surprised. It's very odd, that.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think that's what it is. Marshall's working down there, you can see, and...
all right, so
something's happened there.
Yeah, that's liquid, all right. So whose car's that come out of? Interesting.
It really is, yeah.
In fairness to Paul Aron, I have now written liquid on road, so it doesn't necessarily just point the finger at him. Zane Maloney was the first into the pit lane, effectively. So he was the driver that's credited with the time, but nobody's done a lap yet, so it's all rather irrelevant. Now the field comes back in, and with this being free practice, of course, the clock carries on ticking. So all of this is time wasted. You can see why they are generously given the time they are, because you almost can guarantee you're not going to get all of it. Fantastic that they have Formula 3 cars back on the gear circuit at Macau. First time, as Alan was saying, since 2019. And these Formula 3 specification cars with 3.4-litre Mechachrome engines, so much more powerful, so much faster than the old 2-litre Delaras that we had up to FIA Formula 3, becoming part of the Formula 1 support package and kind of mirroring what was GP2, now Formula 2. So the drivers having much more power. Yesterday's onboard footage going from the start line all the way down to Lisboa in one of these cars, just extraordinary. Really, really impressive, and we'll have more of that, no doubt, when the session goes live out. What is also
impressive is that this weekend we have not just one driver who has won this event before, we also have Richard Bashur, who we were just looking at down in the pit lane, who won the last time we were here with Formula 3 cars. It's good to have previous winners here.
Absolutely.
We were talking yesterday about the prestige of this event, and to win the Macau Grand Prix, how great a draw it is when you've gone on to do other things, great things, driving for manufacturers, and then still coming back and wanting to add to your tally or indeed tick off the first win at Macau Grand Prix. Alexander Sims was run, I think he came back here 5 times.
Yeah.
Got on the podium, never won the race.
Antonio Felix da Costa was always the one, wasn't he, that sort of came back from a manufacturer program and got BMW's blessing, and they said, yeah, go for it, see what you can do this year there. And he always excelled around here, which was always a popular result as well, given the Portuguese influence, and Antonio Felix da Costa falling into that category. But can I offer you the other side of the coin?
Go on.
And you've raised it quite rightly, that you've got a minute to go, by the way, to the restart. You've got Richard Verschoor winner before. You've got Dan Ticktum double winner. If Dan Ticktum doesn't win this year,
yeah,
where does that put his stock relative to whoever does win? You know, do people say, yeah, well, he's won it twice, he's clearly a star, or do they go, oh, well, you know, he got blown away last year, assuming he does get blown away? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know precisely what you mean, and it is a risk, and that maybe substantiates even more what a draw it is, because he'll be well aware of that, and he'll say, okay, well, I know all the risks, and I know there are a whole bunch of really top drivers that have been driving these cars all year, but
it's
I want
Macau.
to do it, yes. I want to win it 3 times.
Now we are 15 seconds away from getting the session back underway, and so the stoppage has at least allowed Luke Browning's team over at High Tech Pulse 8, Ollie Oakes' squad, to put a new front wing on that car. And although they are losing time because with free practice clock ticks, they could have, of course, have lost more against the opposition who would have been circulating. So everyone's been in the same sort of pit lane boat. Green flag, we are back running here then at Macau. Another car there having a little bit of work, number 14, Alex Dunn's High Tech Pulse 8. Gosh, they're having a tough morning, aren't they? Both cars.
Yeah.
The only one that's escaped, I think, is Isaac Hajar.
So the fluid, the slippery surface has been dealt with up at the Malgré hairpin. That's, I mean, in fairness, if you're going to have fluid on the circuit anywhere, that is the slowest part of the circuit to have it. There are a lot worse places to have it.
True.
Imagine at Mandarin. Don't even think about it.
Okay.
I'm sorry I put the idea in your head.
So, and out of that, drivers now trying to get some warmth back into the Pirelli tyres. Pirelli engineers were explaining yesterday that in terms of the stresses that's put through the tyre here, it's a bit like Monza. You know, you've got this really high-speed section here from, well, it really starts coming down Black Sands through Fisherman's Arbed, over the line, Reservoir, Mandarin, all the way down here to Lisboa. In terms of being an abrasive circuit, no, it's not.
Yeah.
What you need here are the right pressures to withstand high-speed sections and the slower speed sections, but also what they were saying is, what you really need here is a tyre that gets up to temperature quickly, because you know you're going to have interruptions, whether it's safety cars, possibly in the races, whether it's red flags in sessions like this. And what you want is a tyre that's going to turn back on really quickly.
Yeah.
You're not going to waste more time coaxing it back up to an operating temperature.
Yeah, a really good point. And today is the coolest day we've had. We raced 2 days last weekend, Saturday and Sunday, but we were here yesterday, and although not as warm as it normally is this time of year, today is much cooler than it has been. 16 degrees in that first thing. So that's that makes us feel at home, doesn't it?
Well, it does rather, quite, yes. And it's really busy because, you know, you're heading towards the weekend. Lots of the schools have come in this morning.
Oh, did you see them?
Well, there are hundreds of them.
Filing in.
Why did I get a school trip to the Macau Grand Prix? Yeah.
And they've got an area of the grandstand.
Yes.
They all sit colour coordinated, different schools.
Right.
It's just brilliant.
I mean, Macau totally embraces it. You think, you look at the circuit, it's 6 kilometres long, but actually, in fairness, Macau is a far bigger region than you think.
Yes.
And this just is one little corner of it. There's a huge amount of Macau that you could go and stand in, and you wouldn't really know the event was on.
So you also know that they have been doing a project, a school project, about this event up until now. So they've got all the information, they've done all the, and now they're seeing it in real life. It's just so cool.
Having said it's busy, it will get busier when about 500 people that are all queued outside of the Hello Kitty merchandising area
it's a busy
pour through the gates. There are more out there, I'll tell you, than there are in the paddock. Elbows out to get through Hello Kitty's queue in the paddock. free as a bird. Right, onto an out lap they go, and Luke Browning with his new wing on the car was out early and has been setting benchmark sectors. That's his teammate, Isaac Hadjar, who goes through aboard number 12. As you can see, he's part of the Red Bull development program, the French-Algerian, and Isaac Hadjar then, who's been racing in Formula 2 this year, stepping back to Formula 3 because he wants to race here, because otherwise he would have missed out on that opportunity, because in 2019 he was only in Formula 4, so he didn't get the chance to race here. And again, that shows you the draw, that people are stepping down a category so they can come and race on the gear circuit.
So we've got a 40-minute free practice session. We have half an hour for qualifying. We have a 40-minute free practice session, and now we are already quarter of an hour into the session, and we haven't yet got a flying lap time.
No.
So this is the opportunity that they're going to get to put the first of the meaningful laps, the flying laps in, just to give us a window into what the track temperature is doing to the times compared to yesterday morning, and in particular what it does in comparison to the qualification times that we had at the end of yesterday. It was a busy day yesterday, not just for the Formula 3 cars, but for everybody. Everybody got 2 chances to be out on circuit, 2 free practice sessions for everyone, a free practice and a qualifying. And now we get to see what the circuit is doing on day 2. Such a full weekend, and so well organised. The first day, predominantly, apart from one qualifying session for Formula 3, is about free practice. Today is about qualifying. Tomorrow is all about qualification races. It is just so well put together, this event.
Yes, every day, although it becomes shorter because you don't need as many races as free practice sessions, for example, but it becomes more intense. And now what you're going to see, I suspect, at the Macau hairpin, and we saw it yesterday, is the slow bicycle race, as it were, where people slow right down to let the car ahead go, and then when they pull the pin coming out of the Macau hairpin, they've got clear track space ahead of them, and they are aiming for an unimpeded flying lap here.
So let's see who's going to come to. Oh, it's not the day for Luke Browning, is it? There was a damaged front wing first of all. Now we've got another problem down at Lisboa, and Luke Browning's morning is not going according to plan by a long way. Yesterday was a great day. Finished up at the end of qualifying in 2nd position to Gabriele Maini, and today Luke Browning, well, maybe just forget about this free practice session and concentrate on qualifying.
Don't forget about Dan Tincton, though, because he's on the money then as he comes across the line. That start-up lap has put him 4 fastest, but let's ride with it then. Speed building all the time here. Next, you'll go right at Mandarin, and the VSC is deployed. Another safety car, virtual safety car, and that ruins that lap for him. He saw him back out of it, slows right down to the delta speed. But that is not what he wants, not what any of them want if they're going for time. Doesn't matter necessarily because it's not qualifying, but they're struggling to get the data back. They're struggling to get the right setup if they can't do flying laps.
So noticeable when the virtual safety car is deployed, the difference in speed, and absolutely crawling along. Yeah, Browning hasn't moved, has he? So Luke Browning's car exactly where it was.
This is reminiscent, though, of Ugo Ugachukwu yesterday. He was up the escape road and he struggled and struggled to get the car fired up.
And nobody came to help Ugo yesterday, did they? No one came to push it. Maybe he didn't want the help. Maybe he wanted to work his way through the car.
Yeah, but interesting that the cars just do not seem to want to fire easily. Anyway, Luke Browning says, give me a push, please. Notice the Williams Racing sticker on the side of the car because he's part of the Williams F1 Junior program.
Looking for all the world like a mini Williams.
Well, indeed so, yes. And Luke Browning comes from Kingsley, which is not that far from Alton Park, about 10 miles or so away from Alton Park. So it's a good Cheshire lad, and he's got it fired up now, sets off. So he'll bring it back, and then the session can continue. But again, I'm all in favour of things like the virtual safety car, or in other categories you would call them full course yellows, because it keeps the session going. We didn't have to have another red flag. The VSC is ending. You've just seen the green light, so now everybody can pick up the pace, and we're back running. The lap that those drivers were on, you can put in the bin, but at least the session is still live.
Good timing on board with the car, the driver that took top slot in Q1 yesterday, just about to start the lap, and here we go then. Gabriele Maini is about to go on to a quick lap. This is going to be a question of hold on tight, because we're riding on board with the British car from yesterday around the gear circuit here at Macau in a modern Formula 3 car. This is going to be quite a ride.
We're heading down towards Lisboa. The speed is building. What are we up to? 278 kilometres an hour. Can we nudge 280? Just about. Then he has to stand on the brakes. And we said this yesterday. Look at it again. You get to Lisboa. There's a little gap in the barrier, but you can't see the corner. All you can see is the wall flashing past left and right. You've got to try and aim for the corner. Now into the sunlight. Climb up San Francisco Hill. Just north of 200 kilometres an hour. Fifth gear then, and head up towards the Solitudeses and the faraway hill part of the circuit. He's up towards the Armco on one side. Look, concrete on the right, stone wall on the left. How unforgiving a section of racetrack is this?
Down through Teddy It, this is the very tight section. Up and down they go as they climb up towards ultimately the highest points of the circuit at Donna Maria, and then take the little run down towards the Macau hairpin. Here we go. Hold on tight, we've got the number 20 car, Tommy Smith, which has gone off at Lisboa as well. He's down the escape road and doing an Ugo, trying to get the car going again.
Indeed so, and I don't think he's the only one, because I think Murray Boyer is off as well, and we've got VSC again. Well, Meany has slowed right down, looking for a yellow, yet VSC deployed. So yet another virtual safety car.
And, well, it was quite a ride for half of the lap. We only got to half of the lap. We didn't even get to the right-hander at Police. But riding on board with these Formula 3 cars is such a joy.
Oh, absolutely. Can I tell you another joy?
Go on.
Equivalent in a GT car.
Oh.
Tune in later.
Thank you.
Yes. And it's also the sound. I mean, the old 2-litre Formula 3 cars, which were here for so many years.
And we love.
And we absolutely still love, because you see them in other categories. But they didn't have the same engine note. These, it's a proper growl. No. And around here, with the fact that the noise is trapped in between the buildings, it's a treat for the senses.
Yeah, you can see why it is the staircase to Formula 1, can't you? The cars are mini Formula 1 cars. They're on the way, on the ladder.
And to have cars like this racing here is really quite something, when you consider that the other events are on modern Formula 1 circuits with, okay, not all, because some will be street circuits like Monaco or potentially, F2 goes to Singapore, but the majority of the modern Formula 1 calendar takes you to circuits with big runoff. Here, forget it. And it's such a joy not to have to worry about track limit warnings.
Two virtual safety cars. We're going to go on board with Gabriel Mini, who is the fastest time from qualifying yesterday and from free practice yesterday. Worth pointing out at this point that we have 17.5 minutes of the session remaining, and we've yet to really get into the groove and get a meaningful time. Okay, it's only free practice, but goodness me, Gabriel Mini wants to make this count, doesn't he? Riding on board once again with the quickest car from yesterday. I'll say it again. Hold on tight. Through Lisboa, through the right-hander at Lisboa. See how the sunshine is so bright today. It might not be necessarily ambiently the temperature that warm. It's windy, it's cold, but the sunshine and the clear blue sky, that does a bit of visibility around this circuit as well.
I mean, his car looking a bit more of a handful as he goes up the hill, but equally you can see the effort that's put into it. 380 brake horsepower, 3.4 litre Macau engine.
And so close to the wall,
absolutely, and there is therefore an awful lot to have to control in terms of what's under your right foot. Grabs a gear and then drops down a gear.
I just realised I held my breath. What would you be doing if you're driving it?
Your eyes would be out like Chapel Handcakes, wouldn't they? Because the concentration is utterly intense. Out of Police, head up towards Moorish. Now look how narrow this section is, and again you see the barriers, then you think, for a turn, go right, climb the hill. Donna Maria is next, the left-hander, and then there's the short run down to the Macau hairpin. Meany with a touch of understeer, gets the car tucked in. It doesn't look as compliant a car, dare I say, as it did yesterday.
It's wonderful to watch. There's going to be a traffic queue at the exits of Macau hairpin, but this is utterly thrilling to be riding on board with the quickest car from yesterday in qualifying and free practice. Look at the sunshine. The camera struggles a little bit to get focus there as they come down the hill through Black Sands and then into Fisherman's Bend with the final turn on the course. The traffic, not a problem. Sweep past shows you just how quick this is. And we have a red flag. Almost, I mean, I would want to have kept my foot in there. But you can't, of course.
Damage to the car in question, and I'm trying to identify who it is. You can see where the damage has come on the left rear corner. but we've got a car off, and that's needing retrieval, and it will take longer than a VSC can do. At this rate, no one's going to get a proper lap in at all. The best is a 2:24, which is a start-up lap. Bearing in mind we're aiming at 2-minute 5s, you can see just how off the pace we are, purely and simply because we haven't had a proper flying lap. It is Nikola Tsolov who has hit the barrier, and so Nikola Solov's car needs retrieving. That's down at Moorish, is it not? And he understeers it and wallop. That's enough to hook the left rear and then turn the car into the barrier, bit like we saw Zane Maloney yesterday at that corner.
What we were saying about the tiniest of mistakes can damage so much here at Macau. It's the rear suspension, it's the front suspension, it's the front wing as well, and that has upset the day. Not just for the car that takes a bump into the wall, but for everybody else as well. It's a red flag. We've had 2 virtual safety cars. They are not getting into the groove this morning.
No, I mean, Solov yesterday was okay. He was 8th in the qualifying session. So, you know, even if they are on the back foot going into Q2, he's got a decent lap time on which he can try to rely. But it's the damage done. And, of course, the first time they're going to know if the car is 100% again and everything is as he wants it to be with the geometry is when he has to start nailing qualifying laps. So that's out of the session.
And so, under a red flag with 13 minutes and 42 seconds of the session remaining. And this is difficult because it being pre-practice, we are still continuing to count down as far as the clock is concerned. We're riding on board with Sophia Flörsch coming up towards the Macau hairpin. It's a wide line on the entry to Macau to get a really smooth run through Macau, and it's not just a question of getting the car around any which way. You can take a line which is quick, speedy on exit, and that sets you up for the end of the lap, and also, more importantly maybe, the start of the next lap.
I wonder whether or not the race director may have a word with the drivers after this, because this is perhaps getting towards the point of too many interruptions now. And yes, I know that the quick cars, and I know that it's a challenging circuit and all that, but equally, there is a time to push, and maybe it's not on your first flying lap. Maybe if you're inexperienced around the circuit, just give yourself a little bit more time. Free practice is meant to be getting the car right, getting yourself happy with the circuit, not trying to be a gun and go for qualifying time.
When you have these constant interruptions, and particularly for those that haven't been here before and want to make the most of every lap that they're here, try and stretch the legs of the car and find out what they can and can't do. There is a vague sense of desperation that we've got to do this, we've got to press on.
Yeah. Whereas yesterday, for example, in the second Macau GT Cup qualifying session, and that entry is predominantly manufacturer-paid drivers. Didn't have a single stoppage. It was just great.
Yeah,
you know, the session flowed. It was fantastic to watch, and a proper rhythm was established. And maybe that's the difference here. You've got young drivers, and of course these guys are all trying to prove themselves and advance their careers.
And they were building up to it as well in GTs. They were slowly. Let's work up to this, because at the end of the session, how many times did it change at the top of the times? It was just superb.
Whereas here, you get the feeling, as you say, there is that hint of desperation, like, got to go for it. Well, there are 11.5 minutes on the clock, and we haven't had a proper flying lap.
No, we have not. They have not got in the groove. They've been on quick laps. We've got the proof of that. Riding with Gabrielli was absolutely superb, wasn't it? Absolutely wonderful experience. Maybe we can do that again. And tweaks to the setup of the cars as well. And Christian Mansell, that car is.
He's an Australian Mansell, in case you're wondering, if you don't follow Formula 3.
Relation.
No, indeed. Quick driver is Christian. Came out of UK racing, in fact, because he drove in the British Formula 4 Championship and then in GB3. And this year has been racing in FIA Formula 3. Got a second and a third. That's Gabriele Mini, who we've been getting excited about all weekend for justifiable reasons. And it's interesting, I mean, he was a double winner in FIA Formula 3 this year, but he was only 7th in the championship. So he was good, but he wasn't necessarily the standout driver. But he's been really impressive here thus far.
You need unique qualities to go well around the gear circuit. One of them is huge bravery.
Oh, bravery. I was wondering where you were going with that word, though.
I know. I can see your face.
That's a man that was in the barriers yesterday, Laurens van Herpen, the Dutch driver for ART Grand Prix. New to these cars. He's been racing in Formula Regionale this year. He was 10th with a couple of podium finishes. won his first ever car race when he drove in the French Ultimate Cup Series. There's a sort of Formula Libre type class in that, and so he drove a Formula Regional chassis to get used to it and won his first ever car race, and then has been a regular in that series of Formula Regional racing for the last couple of years. There is Dan Ticktum for Rodin Carlin. There's no point telling you where he is in the times because nobody has a proper time, but we know that he's trying hard.
And it's interesting, whenever we look at Dan Ticktum, and all you see is the eyes really within the helmet, he looks like he's happy. He has a happy look about him this weekend. I think that comes from being successful around this circuit and coming back. Seen a number of drivers that when they come back, Danny Juncadella, when I first came here, he was just happy all weekend. He'd already had success here at Macau. Coming back to Macau, he was just happy to be here, happy to be on the circuit, just wanted to get on and make the most of the experience.
Fascinating career that Dan Ticktum's had, really, because it's had its... Clearly, he's hugely talented, but then he had his red mist moment at Silverstone, and he was on a 2-year ban, 1 year suspended, so he dropped out of racing for a year, came back at the end of that season, and was instantly on the pace. Red Bull stayed with him, took him to Japan, then he fell off the Red Bull programme, but he's always been able to find drives. He's a bit of a divisive character. Some people like that cavalier attitude, some people don't like the cavalier attitude, and yet put him inside a racing car, and he is just so rapid that it almost makes up for anything else outside of the car.
Well, I shall know my colours to a mast at this point, and say that I'm a Ticktum fan.
Okay.
So when he was doing, and it all comes from one little interview that I did with him early on in the career. He was doing British F4, and he had a pink car. Do you remember the pink car? It was a pale pink car. There was pale pink on it. And about halfway through the season, we were at Snetterton, and I caught up with him in Parc Fermé. He just put it on pole, I think, and I went up to do the interview. He'd taken the top of his overalls down, so he had his fireproof vest on, and it was pale pink. And I went up to him, and the first question I said was, "Fair play, mate. I mean, this is taking corporate identity to another level." He said, "No, Mum just put it in with a coloured wash." so I thought, he's got a sense of humour. It made me giggle, and yeah, we've got on really well ever since.
Good on him. Good on him. Yeah, I remember talking to him after he'd won the Young Driver of the Year award, the PRDC McLaren Young Autosport Young Driver, and yeah, he came across as a really, really nice bloke.
Yeah, he does.
And yet other people don't like some of the character traits. But as I say, as a racing driver, incredibly fast, and he's
cannot knock him.
Yeah, and he's got to start as one of the favourites. Now, Gabriele Mini is out of the car. I think he thinks there's no point going back out. There are 7 minutes on the clock.
He might be right.
And quite frankly, the teams have achieved nothing this morning, other than damage, actually.
Yeah, what can you do? You can only put yourself back over the course of free practice. You can't be a hero.
No. So we're waiting for a resumption time. That's the MP Motorsport area where Dennis Hauger is out of the car. The session is going to resume, we are told, but very few drivers seem to care.
04, so about 40 seconds now until we get the session underway, and with 6 minutes and 34 remaining on the clock, we are about to see the final opportunity for Formula 3 cars to be not competitive. From the end of this session onwards, it's all about competition. It's qualification at the end of today, qualification race tomorrow, and then the Grand Prix on Sunday. So this is the last chance we see for them to, without actually going towards a grid or a result on a podium, this is the last chance we'll get to see them out on circuit. I think most of them are going out, but Gabriele Mini not electing to do so. Green flag.
Dennis Hauger is the other driver that we've seen out of the car, but the Trident team, for example, allow 1, 2 and 3, Vasseur, Stanek and Ugo Chukwu to go. Over at Prema, Dino Boganovic and Paul Aaron are on their way down the pit lane, although Paul Aaron rather slowly, suggesting that either he stalled it or he's trying to let the traffic go. He's picked up pace now, so we've got the cars clearing the pit lane. Very shortly then it's going to be a busy circuit once more. Not as busy as it could be. Isaac Hadjar goes out, pursued there by Alex Dunn. Alex came good towards the end yesterday. He was briefly fastest in Q1, but he got 5th at the end. But for somebody that's never been here and never raced an FIA F3 car, I think that was incredibly impressive.
So they make their way around Lisboa. What are they going to achieve during this final 5 minutes of free practice?
If you were a team principal, perhaps you'd be on the radio and say, just drive the car. Don't worry about a time.
Yeah.
Just get a couple of laps in. Just feel confident with the circuit. It doesn't matter what the lap time is. Just feel confident. Just work out where everything is. Just get yourself into a rhythm, and then we can progress from there in qualifying.
And please bring it back as we sent it out.
Exactly.
Please don't break it.
Yes. 4 sets of tyres for the weekend as well. So just to make the point that for the races, qualifying race and main race, inevitably the teams are going to have to cox and box with what they do with rubber. Perhaps 2 new, 2 used, or 1 new and 3 used tyres, depending on how they look after the tyres. So therefore, that's another reason not to abuse the rubber by clobbering the wall or locking up and going up escape roads, because all you're doing is reducing your chances of having a good set of tyres for when you need them.
Getting the cars back up to temperature now, getting those tyres, those all-important Pirelli tyres back up to temperature through Donna Maria and then down towards the Melco hairpin. Sebastian Montoya is a driver that ended yesterday without too much of a result in qualifying, so today is that much more important. If you have a problem on day 1, it puts the onus on day 2 to be a good day, and sometimes drivers that have come here to Macau with high expectations, high hopes, have had everything upset on day 1. It puts everything back. The programme of putting laps in, getting an opportunity to explore the gear circuit on one of the only 4 days every year that it is open as a race circuit. The rest of the year, in fact from 6 o'clock until 6 o'clock on Grand Prix weekend, it is a normal road. It's buses, it's trucks, it's vans, it's mopeds. It's all the normal life of Macau on this very tarmac. Now it is a gift. It's a race circuit, and a very, very demanding one as well. 3 minutes left.
Right, so
that's all.
1 flying lap, certainly, barring anybody stuffing it in the wall, maybe a second for those that were at the head of the queue and got out first. So that's what you can achieve in 40 minutes. 2 flying laps is now suddenly the big ambition.
It's not much, is it?
No, no. And as you say, qualifying for them later on, and then tomorrow the qualifying race. So rather than race 1 and race 2, the qualifying race, because the result of that gives you the grid for the Macau Grand Prix for Formula 3 cars.
Matthias Sagazetta and Charlie Wirtz are still on their outlap, so they will definitely only get 1 lap.
And Lawrence van Heupen as well. Dennis Hauger, Gabriele Mini, and the 2 that have stayed in, having probably thought there's no point doing anything. Sophia Flörsch has done an absolute best within the first sector. If I say there's not much to compare that against, I'm not trying to be unpleasant to Sophia Flörsch, but genuinely we've had so few flying sectors in the last 38 minutes that we're not basing it against very much. But it's interesting that in that really high speed section over the timing line down towards Lisboa, she is the fastest.
And same yesterday, she had the overall fastest in sector 1. Really good on sector 1, Sophia.
Up the escape road at Lisboa has gone Noel Leon. So the Mexican driver, this year's Euro Formula Open champion, so that's older styles, but less powerful engine Formula 3 cars. He has gone up the escape road, but has been able to turn the car around and rejoin.
That's good news. 1 minute and 25 seconds of the session remaining. That's Luke Browning, who's had a couple of real moments during this free practice session. He's still going and comes across the line now to go onto that flying lap.
Well, that's a 2 minute 6.3, so that's not bad. And we've got a virtual safety car infringement noted from Roman Stanek. The 2 minute 6.3 would have put Luke Browning in the top 6 yesterday in qualifying. So that's okay. That's a good effort. This is Sophia Flörsch. I mentioned that she was quicker than anybody in the first sector. That was Fisherman's Bend. A little bit of correction needed. This fast straight down towards our bend, the last corner on the lap, and then the sort of Formula 1 Alpine equivalent, the blue and pink BBT sponsored car will now come onto the pit straight. So Sophia Flörsch goes through, and let's see what the lap time is and where it's going to put up. Goes through, and 13th fastest. So it started well, but didn't end with the same rapidity.
I'll tell you what, this has got an urgency to it, hasn't it? This has got a real urgency. Let's get on board with Dan Tickton and have a look what this urgency is when the clock counts down. It is now 18 seconds until the checkered flag comes out. This is the one that's going to count in free practice for Dan Ticktum, a double winner here at Macau. Alex Dunn has done well as well. He's currently second. Roman Stanek is third. Isaac Hadjar is fourth. Oliver Gertie is fifth. And now we're on board with Dan Ticktum as the checker flag comes out. This one has to count.
Does indeed. So personal bests for Dan Ticktum in sectors 1 and 2, but not absolute bests. And you can see just how much effort has to be put into the car through this part of the circuit. So Dan Ticktum then now is heading down towards the right-hander of Police, short straight. Look how narrow this part of the circuit is. He has to slow the car down nice and early. And then, out of Moorish, makes the climb up towards Donna Maria through this left-hander. And there are sections of this lap where you just get the impression that Dan Ticktum is being a little bit more cautious. So I don't necessarily think this is an absolute everything on the line lap, but it'll be a decent one.
It's a decent exit from Melco, and I'll say it once and I'll say it again. Yeah, traffic there just unfortunately backs off for Dan Ticktum, but a beautiful run around Melco. I just think that's so important to get a clean exit, to get it well away from the barrier. The circuit begins to open up. It doesn't get that much wider, but it does get much, much quicker. And getting that neat exit from Melco Hairpin sets up the not only the end of one lap, but also the start of another.
So 2-minute 5s yesterday in Q1, the best of the few people that were able to do an unimpeded lap. 2-minute 6.3, Luke Browning in that session from Murray Boyer and then Alex Dunn. So the checkered flag shown, and so the final free practice period for the Macau Grand Prix comes to an end. Next time the cars will be on track will be for Q2, all-important session. And so there, those that have taken the flag, complete the in-lap. Alex Dunn you're looking at, he was a late addition to the entry, but Alex, who was last year's British F4 champion, second in GB3 this year, very quick driver indeed.
Paul Aaron has gone quickest.
Interesting.
Right at the end, a 2:06.327. These times are not that meaningful, are they?
No. I mean, there's pride at stake, and it's really, I suppose, comparing what you've done this morning with yesterday qualifying, where that might have put you. But really, the whole aim for many of them is to just get confident in the circuit. The teams that are regulars at Macau have got to go back effectively 4 years on data in 2019 to know what's the right setup. Then they've got to try and make that work for the driver. And Paul Aaron's not been here before, so he's having to learn.
And I guess these cars have developed over the course of between 2019 and 2023. They will come on leaps and bounds. There'll be a lot of different components on the car, won't there?
Indeed, and the tyres have made a step forward as well. So
yes, good point.
You can expect it all round to be a quicker package at the end of this year compared to 2019.
So, a rundown of the order. After free practice, it was a slightly interrupted session. We had virtual safety cars, we had a red flag as well, but Paul Aaron came out on top with a 2:06.327, compares to a 2:05.5 for Meany yesterday in qualifying. Luke Browning was second, Murray Boyer was third in car number 28. Alex Dunn ended up, the Irish driver, in fourth place, and Dino Boganovic in fifth place, and in sixth place, Roman Stanek. Isaac Hadjar was seventh. Running down the order, who did we think might have been a little bit quicker than they were? Once again, Sebastian Montoya languishing a little bit down in 19th place. Zane Maloney, Ugo Chakwu as well. But notably, Richard Bashur carrying the number one, winner from 2019 here at the Macau Grand Prix, ending up right the way down the order. So there were highlights and there were lowlights over the course of 40 minutes of free practice for the Formula 3 Macau Grand Prix. Let's look back at all of them.